you for being with us today. We are here at the International Conference for Family Planning 2022 in Pattaya, Thailand. Here now at the PSI booth. And we have here with us Chris Purdy, who's the president of DKT. DKT has played a big role in family planning, HIV prevention, providing safe abortion products and services. Can you tell us what you consider the biggest impact that DKT has had, and also what you see as your biggest legacy as the president of DKT?
First of all, PSI and DKT share common history and common DNA, and I think common approach to solving many of these problems. So we are always looking over our shoulders at what PSI is doing, trying to learn from your good work, and hopefully also informing, cross-pollinating. There's a lot of admiration, I think, at DKT for the work of PSI. Of course, Phil Harvey, who was the founder of PSI and founder of DKT, was always the first to talk about all the great things that have happened at PSI and the evolution. I think you'd be very happy to be here today in this chair instead of me talking to you about PSI and the history and the great work. But I think DKT, one of the things that's been interesting to me is how PSI and DKT have really evolved in very different ways. We do similar things, we have similar approaches, but we're actually pretty different organizations at this time. In some ways complementary, in some places we're competitive, friendly competitors. DKT is, I think one of the things that we're most excited about right now is trying to figure out how do we continue a pathway of growth to focus on the needs of women and men, for their reproductive health needs over the next 8 years. How do we accelerate that, and how do we grow that? We know there continues to be a lot of demand. So figuring out solutions for that, and also trying to sort of figure out the financing piece. Right now, DKT covers about 75% of our operating budget from sales revenues, and we're looking to grow that. So that how do we reduce dependency on donors even further, and really create sustainable solutions for the markets that we're in? Because as we all know, donor funding is quite it's capricious, right? This year you have it, 5 years from now you may not have it anymore, but you don't want to stop serving markets, stop serving women just because donor money runs out. I think PSI obviously is thinking about about these issues as well. That's what I'm excited about, and I hope that's where we're headed in the next 8 years.
Thank you for speaking to Phil Harvey. Many people may not know that PSI, MSI, DKT, we share a common founder, a common parent, Phil Harvey. And in many ways, Phil Harvey's spirit is kind of woven into our DNA. The entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to make mistakes, the tolerance for making mistakes, learning from it, moving on, trying out new things, the maverick approach, and also the consumer-centered approach as well. Can you speak a little bit to, compared to when Phil Harvey first started out versus the environment that we are in now, how has sexual and reproductive health, the space, changed over the years?
I gave this award to Phil, Lifetime Achievement Award, here at ICFP, and honored Phil. And in my remarks then, one of the things I commented on was, I think PSI, DKT, and MSI have really built the evidence base for the work that we do, the impact of that work and the approach to that work. That is something I think we shouldn't lose sight of, because it is very tempting at conferences like this to think, well, what's the next shiny thing? We're all going to change what we've been doing and go do that next shiny thing. And I think we need to stay true to what we know has worked extremely well, the impact of social marketing on reproductive health, and in PSI's case, on many other aspects of health. It's tremendous. It's incredible, and the power of the private sector to do those things. Again, that's a song I think we all need to be singing a little more loudly, and a lot of that has to do with Phil Harvey's approach to solving problems. You spoke to sort of these cultural attributes, those sound like DKT when you talk about entrepreneurialism and decentralization and sort of risk-taking and mavericks. That's certainly how we think about things at DKT. I think the world would be a little better place if more organizations adopted those kinds of cultural approaches.
We've seen many population control efforts from governments, particularly over the years, like, for instance, China's one child policy, or for a period of time, India, the forced vasectomies, and family planning is really different. Can you speak to that a little bit? How family planning efforts are different from some of these population control efforts that we have seen?
I mean, obviously, the conversation around family planning now has become more rights based, moved away from population control to individual choices. Fundamentally, I think the question of how do you empower individual consumers to make decisions that are right for them? That really has to do with making those products available and accessible, giving people the information that they want, and fundamentally getting out of the way. It's a little different from sort of the top-down structural, we're going to structurally create programs that are going to solve these problems like the ones that you've just mentioned. I think the world that we're in now, and PSI is also leading the charge on this, on self-care. How do we just help consumers get what they need? That's really different from the way it was 25 years ago. And I think we're only moving in that direction because of technology, because of the product method mix is changing, and a lot of focus on methods that women and men can control themselves. And I think the other piece that is evolving, that is changing, is the financing piece. How are all of these people in all these booths here at ICFE, how are they going to pay for themselves in 25 years? Because the funding envelopes are changing rapidly. The ground is changing under our feet. If we don't adapt, prepare for that, we're going to be in trouble.
I was just speaking this morning to the social marketing company, and I was reading this interview by Phil Harvey where he talks about SMC, which started off as the social marketing project, a USAID project implemented in Bangladesh back in 1974, and went on to become an independent organization and has really thrived. They went from providing contraceptive condoms to expanding their products and services to now 100 products, menstrual hygiene, nutritional supplements, and it has a very wide approach, and they're even thinking about now expanding beyond Bangladesh. So this was one of the biggest successes he speaks about. But Phil Harvey tried out all sorts of new things. There must have been epic failures as well. So I would love to hear from you. What are some things that sounded like great ideas, but didn't work out all that well?
We certainly have had plenty of those. I mean, Phil always used to talk about launching soap and shampoos and other cosmetic products, and people always got excited about that. And inevitably, it's not our focus. We're not good at that. And we've continued the tradition of failing, so I'm proud about that. Because failure is not a bad thing, right? Failure is just one step to learning something, to do something a little bit better. So we continue to fail. We've launched all kinds of products and initiatives that haven't gone well. I think it's great. We should be organizations that don't cut off people's heads when someone makes a mistake, even a pretty big mistake, if it's done with the right intent. That's certainly a message that I always talk about at EKT. Don't be afraid to try something and break the molds about how things have always been done if you think if the return on investment is worth it.
We were very excited to see you accept the Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of Phil Harvey. So as three of his children, the PSI, MSI, DKT, it was very exciting to see that. Thank you so much for being here with us today.